Hey everybody, this is Brian with Bear Cards 34, back with another edition of the 1990 Topps and Friends, where I highlight the cards from 1990, including Topps football and all the other brands that have been coming out, starting some of them in 89 and some of them in 1990. So on the far right there, we have the Super Pro card, which was an insert from Pro Set. Just like Santa Claus and some of the others, that was a fun one to hit back in the day. So we're starting off today with the Houston Oilers. We've got Warren Moon scrambling to daylight. He was part of that run and shoot offense that was a lot of fun to watch. In 1990, the year these cards came out, the Oilers went 9-7, and they lost to the Bengals in the wild card playoffs. The head coach at the time was Jack Pardee. He passed away back in 2013. This was his first year with the Oilers, and the first of 4 straight playoff appearances as well. Back in the mid-'70s, he even was a coach for the Chicago Bears. Hall of Famers from the team included Mike Munchak, Bruce Matthews, and Warren Moon. And they were all pros that year as well. So we had Pro Bowlers that year. So we had Mike Munchak, Bruce Matthews, and also a Pro Bowl card here of Warren Moon, who all played in that game. And the All-Pro that year was Bruce Matthews. We have his Score All-Pro. And then one of the insert cards you could pull from that set was the Fleer All-Pro. And there is his. We also had the All-Madden team from Action Packed. And that included Bruce Matthews. Again, we've got Mike Munchak and Warren Moon. So all the Hall of Famers were part of the All-Madden team. And then in addition, we had wide receiver Ernest Givens, who was a part of that team as well. I do have a Stars and Stripes card of Mike Munchak. And then I always talk about the locals from my home state of Utah. So former All-Pro linebacker Al Smith, who went to Utah State, had a card made that year. And then Score had the Young Superstars set, and Alonzo Highsmith, the running back fullback, was included in that. The Score set had hot gun cards, and the Warren Moon is definitely one of my favorites. So with Warren Moon, his is the only hot gun card that had a nighttime background, and of course that would make sense. How could they resist putting the moon in there? The other ones all had a skyline of some sort, so really fun insert card right there. Warren Moon was also the 1989 Man of the Year, and you can see him picking up the award right there. So a nice honor for him. And Warren Moon also had a collectabooks from Pro Set as well. So one of the rookies for Houston that year was Jeff Alm. I was a big fan of his when he played at Notre Dame. He was very good there. He was a second-team All-American and was a second-round pick, 41st pick of the draft in 1990. And unfortunately, he just had a really tragic story in his life. But he played most games during his first 3 years, but only made a minor impact, nowhere near what they were seeing from him in the college football ranks. But in his first 3 years, he only had 2.5 sacks. He played in only 2 games in 1993 due to injuries. He broke his leg. And he was just days from returning from practice to practice. And on December 13th of 1993, he and a really good friend of his, longtime friend, had been out. In fact, I think his friend, if I remember right, was actually out there visiting him, just kind of cheering him up and kind of spending some time with him before Jeff Alm started returning to practice with the Oilers. And on the 13th, they went out to a bar. They were hanging out there. And then, unfortunately, on the morning of the 14th at 2:45 a.m., Jeff Alm, who was driving, and his friend was in the passenger seat, Alm was speeding, and he lost control of his Cadillac Eldorado and crashed. Now, Jeff Alm was wearing a seatbelt at the time. His friend Sean Lynch was not, and his friend was ejected from the vehicle and died almost instantly. Jeff Alm was distraught. He called 911 for help from his car phone, but once he realized the condition of his friend, unfortunately, he took his own life. He was only 25 years old, and just a really, really sad story, that ended tragically. So Bears Notre Dame teammate Chris Zorich, who I was also a big fan of course, said that Alm was the heart of the defense when they played together at Notre Dame. And I will mention, just in case anybody needs this, either if you're struggling with suicidal thoughts or depression, or if you know someone who is, 988 is the number now for the crisis lifeline, and they're available 24/7. So if you ever just need someone to talk to, 988 is a really good resource. Okay, next up we've got Haywood Jeffires. These are his rookie cards from 1990. He actually was a first-round draft pick back in 1987 out of North Carolina State. As a wide receiver, first-round pick. If they had done it back then like they do now, he would have had lots and lots of rookie cards back in 1988. However, it took until 1990 for him to get any cards made. So we've got his tops, Pro Set, and Score. That middle one from Pro Set, I've always really loved that picture. I'm a sucker for snow game cards. Like anytime I see snow in a card, I like those. So anyway, he was a very talented receiver. He had a 10-year career. Almost had an 11th with the Chicago Bears, actually, but he never played beyond the practice squad. But anyway, during his time with the Oilers, he was a 3-time Pro Bowler. His best season was in 1991 when he was the receiving leader with 100 catches, which at the time was very rarely done. And he was an All-Pro that year. And he was a part of Warren Moon's great run-and-shoot teams, which included Drew Hill, who was my favorite of them, Ernest Givens, Curtis Duncan, Webster Slaughter. And Jeffries and Drew Hill became best friends with the Oilers. And Haywood Jeffires just had a really, really solid career with the team back in the day. Next up, we've got Greg Montgomery rookie cards. He was actually a third-round draft pick from Michigan State back in 1988, which is pretty high for a punter. He had a 10-year career. The reason I mention him is because he was a Pro Bowler and an All-Pro in 1993, and he led the NFL in yards per punt 3 times, which is pretty impressive. His longest punt ever was 77 yards. And unfortunately, he passed away back in 2020 at the age of 55, but a really good punter back in the 90s. Next up, we've got Lamar Lathan, rookie. He was the 15th pick in the 1990 draft out of Houston. Best year, of course, was 1996, for those of you who remember. He was a second-team All-Pro and a Pro Bowler with the Carolina Panthers at the time. He spent his first 5 years with the Oilers and then his final 4 with the Panthers. And when he was on the Panthers, he was there with a couple of Hall of Fame linebackers, Sam Mills and Kevin Green. Unfortunately, by 1998, the injuries got the better of him, and he retired after just 9 years. But in 1996, he had 13 and a half quarterback sacks. There's an interview with him from last year, 2022. He's 54 years old now, but he mentioned that he had had 34 total surgeries, all from playing football. That included 18 surgeries on his knees, 9 on his shoulders, and 3 on his wrists. And so, definitely football, was pretty rough for him. And like a lot of players, really. Teammates always spoke of his athleticism. In 1996, the year that I mentioned where he had 13 and a half sacks, he was very competitive with his teammate Kevin Green. So they were given the nicknames Salt and Pepper. And Lathan and Green, they had this rivalry. And, they kind of felt like with Kevin Green, he was flashy, he had these dances, things like that. And Lathan kind of felt like, hey, look what I'm doing here, not getting quite the same coverage. And there was a game where versus the Falcons where Kevin Green had 2 sacks and Lathan had 3. But Lathan felt that Green was getting all of the press, and so he started ignoring Green for a little while. But Kevin Green was persistent. He just kept praising Lamar. He was showing him his own game film and saying, hey, Lamar, look how awesome this play you did was, and really won Lamar over. And they ended up becoming really good friends. They'd have dinner at each other's houses. They would spend time together. And they actually stayed in touch until Kevin Green's death back in 2020. And in Green's Hall of Fame speech back in 2016, he commented that Lamar made him a better player and how much he appreciated him, which I think meant a lot to Lamar. So anyway, a very talented linebacker. He's not a guy who's going to go to the Hall of Fame or anything like that, but he was a talented, athletic player who, prior to injuries was really a key part of those defenses that he played for. And the last rookie card for the Oilers that I'm going to mention here is Patrick Allen, and I think he might actually have a McDonald's card from a few years earlier, but I mention him because he also went to my alma mater of Utah State. He was a fourth-round pick back in 1984, but didn't have his rookie card until 1990, which also was his last season in the NFL, which meant that this card right here was his only card, as far as like a major brand coming out. He was a 4-year starter at Utah State, and he made the USU All-Century team back in 1993. And his brother Anthony Allen also played in the NFL with the Falcons, Redskins, and Chargers as a wide receiver. And Patrick, all 7 seasons were with the Oilers, and one of his best friends was the Cleveland Browns' Eric Metcalf. Unfortunately, Patrick Allen passed away in June of 2021 at the age of 59, but he's very much loved here at Utah State for sure. All right, next up, we've got the New Orleans Saints, who in 1990, when these cards came out, went 8-8, but they lost to the Bears in the wild card game. Playoffs, Jim Mora was the head coach. He was the 1987 Coach of the Year, and when he coached for the Baltimore and Philadelphia Stars, he was a 2-time USFL champ as coach. Now, the Pro Set card, this is one of the many that have an error version. So on the back, you'll see it has both his name in black and his name in white, and so they had to correct the original one to match up more with the actual set. And for Hall of Famers, we had kicker Morton Anderson, Rickey Jackson, and the late great Sam Mills. I love Ricky's haircut, totally dated for those early 90s, right? But pretty great. They had 2 1,000-yarder yard club cards from that year. So 1989, both Eric Martin and Dalton Hilliard ran and received for 1,000 yards. And Dalton Hilliard had a great year. He had 13 rushing touchdowns and 5 receiving touchdowns, so 18 total, which put him as the 1989 NFL scoring leader for touchdowns. The All-Pro for the team that year was Morton Anderson, so he had one of those Fleer insert cards. And Dalton Hilliard also had one of those ground force cards from Score. I always loved those, the design with the lightning in the background. And for the All-Madden team, we had Stan Brock, and these were kind of cool. They were kind of 2 birds with one stone. Sam Mills, Vaughn Johnson, Pat Swilling, and Rickey Jackson. I mean, that's one of the most talented linebacking core from my generation. They were just unbelievable. Pretty cool, though, that he included all 4 of them in that set. We had Pro Bowl cards of Pat Swilling, Johnson, and Hilliard, and the American Bowl in London, which was the Raiders versus the Saints. I also have a couple Stars and Stripes cards, so the Vaughn Johnson and the Dalton Hilliard. And for the young superstars, cornerback Robert Massey of the Saints. And I mentioned that I love those snow cards. I love the picture on this one. You've got Rickey Jackson sacking, fumbling, forcing the fumble of Jim Kelly right there, and you've got the ball down at the bottom. But I always thought that was a great image right there. So the Saints' top pick was the 14th pick out of West Virginia, Renaldo Turnbull at defensive end. He made the all-rookie team in 1990 with 9 sacks. He played 8 NFL seasons, including his final year with the Panthers in 97. But after that really promising rookie season, he only had 2.5 combined sacks between 91 and 92. But then in 1993, he had his best year. He had 13 quarterback sacks. He was first-team All-Pro. Along with those 13 sacks, he had 5 forced fumbles and an interception. And so he was a very talented player. We have his Score rookie card, as well as the class of 1990, and then the Score update, and an action-packed update rookie series as well. So he had quite a few rookie cards for Renaldo Turnbull. And I'll mention, this is his only rookie card, Joel Hilgenberg, right here, for the Saints. So Hilgenberg, he was actually drafted back in 1984 out of Iowa. He was a 4th-round pick, and he played all 10 years with the Saints. And he comes from a family of football players. Of course, his brother Jay is part of the great Chicago Bears. His uncle Wally played for the Vikings at linebacker. And Joel and Jay actually played together on the Saints during both of their final year in 1993. Joel made the Pro Bowl in 92, and he is a Saints Hall of Famer. He played in 142 games for them. All right, and the last team for today is the 1990 Kansas City Chiefs, who in 1990 won 11-5. Had a really good year. They lost in the wild card division game to the Dolphins by 1 point. Their head coach was Marty Schottenheimer, who passed away back in 2021. He was a former AFL All-Star, and he was one of my favorite coaches back in the day. I really liked his personality and the way he interacted with the players. And they did make these Hall of Fame cards for Buck Buchanan, who was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1990, the great player for Kansas City. The Hall of Famer from the top set is the late, great Derrick Thomas. However, Mike Webster, the Hall of Fame great center for the Steelers, who ended out his career there in Kansas City, had a few cards made in the 1990 sets as well. He's not a Hall of Famer, but I will mention, part of the success of that team was Steve DeBerg, who had a real career resurgence with Kansas City during that time period. And then Derrick Thomas won the NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year in 1989. And Christian Okoye, the NFL's rushing leader from 1989. There is a story, some of you guys may be familiar with it. So these are the rushing leaders in the AFC and NFC. And Barry Sanders, the Chiefs game had already ended, and Wayne Fontes had been having someone radio into his ear about the rushing leader mark, and they let him know that he had put Barry on the sidelines later in the game, and Fontes found out that Barry only needed 10 yards to get the rushing title. And so he asked Barry if he wanted to go back in to get the title, and Barry said, "No, that's okay. Just let the other guys play some." And so Christian got the rushing title. But hey, Christian Okoye, the Nigerian Nightmare, he was an All-Pro in '89, and just a great player, very powerful running back. The Pro Bowlers for the Chiefs included Derrick Thomas, cornerback Kevin Ross, and Christian Okoye, along with cornerback Albert Lewis. And the All-Pros were Okoye, and we've also got Albert Lewis here as well. They did make Fleer All-Pro cards for Derrick Thomas, and also the Nigerian Nightmare, Christian Okoye. And Topps had the 1,000-yard club card for Christian Okoye. Topps also made this, made this Ground Force card. And for part of the Young Superstars set, we had Derrick Thomas right here. So he was included in that. And I do have a Stars and Stripes of Derrick Thomas as well. And I always love these Crunch Crew cards. These are pretty fun. Derrick Thomas had one of those. And there was a Pro Set card recognizing the American Bowl in Berlin with the Rams and the Chiefs. And then this Otis Taylor, it's his 46-yard touchdown run, was part of the Super Moments in Super Bowl history. And a lot of really good players from the Chiefs, including EJ, and I might say his name wrong, Holub. He was a center and outside linebacker. Hall of Famer Jan Stenrud was part of the Super Bowl Supermen. Punter Jarrell Wilson. Safety Johnny Robinson. The great Willie Lanier at inside linebacker. Curly Culp at defensive tackle. And the guy who we showed earlier in the set, Hall of Famer Buck Buchanan. They also made a Len Dawson Super Bowl IV MVP card, and I always love those art cards. And Christian Okoye has a collect-a-book card as well. So the Chiefs, their first pick was the 13th pick of the draft for 1990, and they picked 1989 All-American out of Michigan State, Percy Snow. He was also the MVP of the '88 Rose Bowl. He was one of only a handful of players to win both the Butkus Award and the Lombardi Award, and the Lombardi Award is recognized right there in that Pro Set card. So when you would first buy Pro Set cards, it came like that, and then later they added this drafted first-round Kansas City stripe to the later versions of the card. And then also in Pro Set Series 2, we had his actual card on a team. We also have this Class of 1990, and his score rookie card, and then his score update in his jersey, as well as, and yeah, speaking of a guy with a lot of rookie cards, Percy Snow, action-packed. Then we had the Percy Snow Fleer, and then we had the Fleer update as well. So he was a great college player, and he had a really good rookie season. Unfortunately, in training camp of 1991, he tore up his knee really bad in a moped accident at training camp, and he never got back to his former play. Snow only made 15 starts in his career, and 14 of those were his rookie season. He did play briefly in 93 with the Bears, but was out of the league after that. So, unfortunately, that injury really did him in. But a very talented college player for sure. Next up, we have Todd McNair. These are his 2 rookie cards that we've got for him. And I'm just going to mention him real quick. He was an 8th-round pick in '89 out of Temple. He played 8 years with the Chiefs and Oilers, but he's currently the running backs coach for Tampa Bay, where he won a Super Bowl ring as a coach for them. Next up, we've got Barry Ward rookie cards. So Barry Ward, he was a 3rd-round pick back in 1986 by the Saints out of Virginia, but right after the draft, he was indicted on drug charges, and so the Saints decided not to offer him a contract that year. He spent 5 months in prison, and then the Saints did sign him, and he played there, but only very sparingly. I think he had like 35 or 36 carries over 2 or 3 years. By 1989, he was not on a team. He tried out for the Cowboys and the Steelers, but he never actually saw any time playing, and he was out of football basically for over a year. He then signed with Kansas City in 1990, and they already had the leading rusher from the year before, but Barry Ward was so good that he ran for over 1,000 yards in 1990 on only 204 carries. He was also named the NFL Comeback Player of the Year, and good enough that even the NFL's leading rusher had to split carries. But what a great 1-2 punch for sure. Okay, I want to show the offensive lineman a little bit of love. So this is Tim Grunhard. He was a 2nd-round pick in 1990 out of Notre Dame, and I always loved that 1990 score rookie card of him with the Fighting Irish. So Grunhard was a 99 Pro Bowler. He made the All-Rookie team in 1990, and he played in 104 games for the Chiefs. And then another really good lineman who had his rookie cards this year, although John Alt had been playing for a while, he started in 1984 out of Iowa. He was a 2-time Pro Bowler in 92 and 93. He's part of the Kansas City Hall of Fame and played in 149 games, or started in 149 games. Oop, getting a little ahead of myself. His son Mark is playing hockey for the Colorado Avalanche. And then the last one, here we go, Rob McGovern. So he was a 10th-round pick in '89 out of Holy Cross. He played with the Chiefs, Steelers, and Patriots. The reason I wanted to mention him is he's had quite an interesting life after football. So he ended up going to law school after football and was a prosecutor in the DA's office in New York. And after the September 11th attacks, he volunteered for active duty in Afghanistan and Iraq. And while he was in Iraq, he would prosecute insurgents with the Central Criminal Court of Iraq. And he wrote a book called All-American Football Faith Fighting for Freedom. And his brother Bill, just last year, was the inside linebacker coach for the Chicago Bears. But just thought, that's his only card, I believe. At least it's his only rookie card. And just quite the interesting story there after his football career was over. All right, so as usual, we're going to open a pack of 1990 Topps football. I've got one of my daughters here to help me out. She is going to open the pack tonight. All right.
Okay, so I'm going to be opening up this pack of football cards. Okay. Oh, they're easy to open.
Now, we'd like to get it. Yeah, they call them wax packs because they put wax in there. And there's gum. We want to try that?
No.
It's over 30 years old. It doesn't smell too good, I bet not. So it'd be great if we can get like Barry Sanders or like a Junior Seau rookie. All right, let's see what we get.
Bert Grossman or Grossman.
Mm-hmm.
Rich Morin. Don Griffin. Tim McDonald.
He was good.
Bobby Herbert.
Yeah, it might be pronounced Abear, if I remember
probably.
right. But yeah.
Yeah, probably. Kent Hull.
Yeah.
Jim Jeffcoat.
Yeah.
Eric Martin. Okay. John Stevens. Chip Lohmiller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good.
Kirk Loudermilk.
Yeah.
Thane Gash. Dwayne Woodruff. Eugene Robinson, Tim Rosenbach, and Tony Casillas.
Yeah, it might be Casillas, but yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, he was pretty good, too. All right, good job. Thanks for opening that for us.
Yeah, it was fun.
All right.
Got some cool cards.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks, everybody, for watching. Really appreciate that. I'm going to go try to convince my daughter to have this gum, and I will be back with another edition of this coming up in the very near future. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Appreciate it.